Can we all, again, clap for them, for their music performance? Well, welcome everyone to TEDx Central Michigan University 2026. All of us have worked really, really hard to be here today, and we're so grateful for all of you to show up because you're curious, because a family or friend is performing, or just because you want to learn more. So before we start with the official event, let me just show you a little bit about what is TEDx and why it's so important to spread ideas.
Do something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons. People gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000. Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons. People gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out.
My name is I'm a senior student. I'm a senior. I'm graduating in a month, very excited. And I'm majoring in neuroscience and finance. And the reason why I decided to host this event this year is because someone before me did it. So the TEDx CMU first started in 2023, thanks to Tyler Thompson, who is over there in the background. Can we clap for him? Yay. So Tyler is a CMU student, now is alumni, but he started this in 2023. And since then, I saw for firsthand the impact it had. So I decided to take over. And I'm very, very grateful for all of you to be here today. So if this is your first TEDx talk, I will explain a little bit how it works. So TEDx has an overall theme. So the theme this year is changing the paradigm, as you can see. So what does this mean? Changing the paradigm for me specifically means thinking differently, right? All of us are born with different, with our family, with our predispositions, with our backgrounds. But as we grew up, we continue thinking the same way, right? And it's very important that we challenge ourselves to see why I'm acting this way, why I think this way, right? So changing the paradigm just inspires us to do that, to be curious and to wonder. Specifically, this theme is very special for me because growing up, my parents, so I'm from Spain, and my parents always growing up will tell me when I do something I didn't want to do, or I was complaining, they will tell me, cambia el paradigma, which means change the paradigm, Caroline. I think differently how you're doing the things. So I'm very excited for all of you to see the amazing speakers we have tonight. Thank you for being here in the audience. I also wanted to say hi, people in broad live stream, because they're joining us also online. So how it's going to work? We're going to have 8 different speakers. So we're going to have 4 in the first half. We're going to have a break, and then we'll have another 4 in the next second half. Okay, when the speakers are presenting, please turn off your phones, no noise. They're putting themselves out here, so just be mindful and also be present. You cannot ask them questions when they're presenting. If afterwards you see them walking around, you can talk to them, but there is no questions afterwards. And I hope that all of you enjoy it, are engaged, and change your paradigm. So before we start, we have a special guest. So President Neil McKinnon is here to do some opening remarks. So let's just welcome him.
All right. Well, good morning. How are you guys doing? All right. I think we've got a great audience today, Carolina. So in case you forget where you are, we have this giant sign behind us, okay? So you guys should remember where you are. I also want to give Carolina a shout out as well. She's had a pretty good week. You know why? Because Thursday night, she was named the Student of the Year for the College of Business Administration. Carolina and I had opportunity to work really closely last year when she was the president of the Student Government Association. And my very first public presentation as president was a 100 days kind of reflection tour. And I kind of reflected back on what I was doing during those 100 days. So I gave a short presentation, then Carolina grilled me in a fireside. She asked me some questions in a fireside chat. She also has a very bright future. After graduation, she'll be on Wall Street in a really great job. So looking forward to seeing what you do post-graduation. I know really today's event took a team. We've got folks around the room and cameras. We've got folks that greet us in. I don't know if we have all 14,100 students working on this event today here at CMU, but certainly we have a lot. So let's just give them a round of applause, the planning committee and all the students. Well, as Carolina shared, the theme today, again, is changing the paradigm. And I think of CMU, maybe just sharing very quick ways that we've really embraced this theme. The first is around artificial intelligence. I know we'll have a presentation, one of the 8 on that topic today. Artificial intelligence is something I think we're all kind of struggling with. There's obviously a lot of good. A lot of people are scared. Where should we be? Earlier this year, I appointed a special advisor to the president, Ben Andre, here at CMU. We also awarded a GO grant last year around how we should handle AI at CMU, and out of that came a bunch of recommendations. Last fall, we started offering a minor degree, so all of our undergraduate students, it doesn't matter what your major is, you can now do a minor in AI. Next fall, we'll be introducing a major, and then after that, a master's degree as well. So I think of something like that. Just think of how AI has changed our world just in the last few years. A second way that we've embraced changing the paradigm at the university is implementing a new unit at the university called the University Transformation Office. For those of you that are part of our community this week, you probably received an email that lists some of the projects that they're working on. Also, the person leading that is our Chief Transformation Officer, Darcy Wilson. So what does the UTO do and what does the Chief Transformation Officer do? Well, a lot of it is embracing change. One thing that really came out of forming this is that a lot of faculty and staff reached out to Darcy after I made the appointment last year and said, how can I be part of this? And so we created something called the Change Champions Network. Currently, we have 33 faculty and staff that meet monthly with Darcy and her team on the topic of change. How do we handle change at CMU? What should we be doing better? Also, it's not full, so if we have other faculty and staff that want to be part of that, please reach out to Darcy. She'd be glad to include you. Next week, at our CMU Board of Trustees meeting, she will be presenting a change roadmap. This is a document that will help us prepare for bigger changes ahead at the university. So again, it's a very timely topic. We're really thrilled that we're talking about this today. So again, the next 8 topics, I've seen a preview, and I know it's a wide variety of topics, everything from healing childhood trauma to AI and healthcare to a topic that's very intriguing, the human side of mechanical engineering. So really a wide variety of topics, but all grounded on that theme of changing the paradigm. So my final really words to you are, whether you're viewing the live stream, whether you're here in person or perhaps watching this after the event, is to listen intently. Think about, how does this change your world? What should you be doing differently based on the information that you're going to be hearing from these 8 fantastic speakers today? So thank you for being part of TEDx at CMU, and fire up chips. Thank you.
Thank you, President McKinnon, for those opening remarks. So, as mentioned before, we're going to start with our first speaker. And I just want to say, again, these speakers were selected, and it was a hard process, but we have 8 of them. And some people traveled from California, from Arizona, from Texas. So they're not even from Michigan. So I just want all of you to welcome them and show them the meet was warm to all of them. They're putting them here on this stage. So without further ado, we are going to start with our first speaker, which is Joseph Cope. So before he comes to the stage, I will just give you a little preview of who he is. So Joseph Cope is going to give a talk called Fierce Empathy, How to Lead from the Heart Without Finishing Last. He is a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and author. Joseph has built a reputation around defining empathy as a fiercely intentional, transformative leadership skill. This foundational belief has fueled his journey from award-winning education to highly sought-after speaker. And it's what keeps his work rooted in presence, curiosity, and courage human connection. Whether the empathy guy is speaking from the top stages, guiding leadership teams with deep intention, or helping individuals reconnect with their own voice, Joseph's mission resonates. Spend any time with him, and you will be inspired to create, firstly for yourself and from others. And Joseph is based in Austin, Texas. So let's welcome Joseph.
What you know about empathy is misguided. After over 2 decades of work with the most challenging demographic in the world, I've come to a conclusion. The conclusion is that empathy is a skill that we need more than ever in a disconnected society. I remember in 2017, I had just coming off winning the Teacher of the Year award. And in October of that year, a knock at my door led TJ to my room. TJ was brand new in my classroom. He was the kind of kid who had bright eyes and was ready to take on the world until he needed to do something. You know the person in your life? They have all of the energy in the interview. They have all the energy when they first meet you, but when it comes down to actually getting things done, it's hard. I remember one particular day, TJ had something that he had to do in front of me. I think it was a test. And I handed the test out, and he put his head down. And I walked over to him and I said, TJ, I know that the results of this test may not be in going on your greatest hits list, but I'm looking for a little bit of perseverance. If you can't give 100% perseverance, can you lock in with 20 just so we can get started? Because perseverance isn't about finishing, it's about starting. TJ looked up at me and goes, I got you, Mr. Cope. And what do you know? He finished. Put your right hand over your heart if you feel like the world needs more empathy. Now raise your left hand if sometimes it feels like empathy is heavy. To implement empathy without heaviness comes from the source of the definition of empathy, which is how it's described in the dictionary. Dictionary definition of empathy is this: empathy is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of another. That's heavy. vicariously experiencing, the most common understanding of empathy is just take someone else's perspective. But how can I take your perspective if I don't have your lived experience? Humans are wired to connect. From the very beginning of when we were born, we came into this world screaming and went skin to skin with our mother to begin what I like to call the wiring of your empathic nature. Everybody's heard of the stats that are out there about how humans, and Americans in particular, are becoming more and more disconnected. There's a tragedy of isolation taking place in our society today. So what can we do to connect with intention? Human beings are wired to connect, and it manifests from the earliest of ages as what I call your empathic nature. If everyone was born with the same thing, depending on how you were raised, is going to determine your empathic nature. Some people in this world have what I like to call an underdeveloped nature. You know those people. They may have been raised in a family that just had logistics in mind. And they grow up, and in challenging moments in the workplace or in life, they're known as jerks. On the other end of the spectrum are those who have an overdeveloped empathic nature. They're the ones who, in challenging moments, thanks to their survival skills, but once they become an adult in their challenging moments, they get labeled as sensitive, or have you heard this term, empaths. And the challenging part about wherever you fall on that spectrum is that if in challenging moments, all you have is your empathic nature, wherever you lie, what you think is empathy is likely going to be sympathy. Empathy is a skill. Sympathy is an emotion. Sympathy is driven by emotions, which also means that sympathy drives victimhood. Sympathy drives resentment. And sympathy feels heavy because sympathy drives a power over dynamic rather than a power under dynamic. Power to is what empathy brings. The skill of empathy creates the space for someone to see the value of change for themselves. That's power to. That's empowering. See, in Daniel Pink's masterpiece, Drive, the secret to what motivates us, he talks about the number one variable that drives human behavior. That's autonomy. Autonomy is my choice, my way, my time. I get to choose change for myself when I'm ready. But we've all been there where we're stuck. We don't know what to do, and we don't even know what change looks like. In those moments, when somebody has the skill to create the space for your brain to find the value of change for itself, that's what I call fierce empathy. About 2.5 years ago, I was asked to come in and do some training for a group of correctional officers at a facility. I walked into the facility for the tour, and the big door slams behind me. Kadoosh. As it slams behind me, a group of young men affected by the system come walking in front of me. And the young man at the back starts staring at me. Now listen, I taught middle school, so I'm not intimidated by anything. It wasn't like he was mad dogging me, but he was staring. I didn't think twice about it, so I walked the other way, and from behind me, I heard this, Mr. Cole. I turned and I looked, and the face looked awful familiar. I said, I'm really sorry. I forget your name, but I remember your face. Can you remind me? He said, it's TJ. I looked at him and I said, it's so good to see you. I leaned over to the captain and I said, can I give him a hug? And she goes, of course. He fell into my arms. And I said, TJ, it's so good to see you. And he goes, Mr. Cope, I wish it wasn't like this. And I looked at him and I whispered into his ear and I said, you remember those conversations we had when you were in 6th grade where you got to choose change for yourself? I'm doing a training like that with the officers here. And he pulls me apart. He looks the captain in the eye and he goes, "You got the right guy. He's good." But what made me good? See, every person, every human wants to experience that I can do hard things, but not for you, for me. And those are what are called mastery moments. Mastery moments are when you choose change for yourself, and that change has an impact on you. And at the end of it, you feel like, I did that for me. But the beautiful part about mastery moments is that once you go through a mastery moment, who do you want to share those mastery moments with? The person who created the space for you to see the value of change. For who? Yourself. And when mastery moments accumulate, something incredible emerges. It's called purpose. Purpose is a really misoverused word these days. But I'm going to give you a definition of purpose that came about from a mentor of mine named Gab Boucher about 4 years ago that changed my life. Listen carefully. Purpose is the best of what you've been given to give to others. Purpose is the best of what you've been given to give to others. And purpose doesn't emerge from nowhere. Purpose comes from somewhere deep within. And sometimes it just takes one person to create the space for you to see the value of change for yourself, thus letting purpose emerge. Let's redefine empathy. Empathy, fierce empathy, is the skill a leader possesses to create space for another human so that individual can see the value of change for themselves. Empathy is not about feeling someone else's feelings. Empathy is about creating space. So how do we practice? How do we grow the skill of fierce empathy? Now let's make something clear. Empathy in itself is not fierce. The intention by which you grow empathy, that's fierce. So the framework that I'm going to share with you is a framework that I teach and coach and speak on in stages around the country and in organizations who are looking to increase productivity and burnout and human connection. It's what I call the cargo model. Cargo is very different than baggage. In a challenging moment, don't nobody want your baggage. It stinks. And it's part of who you are under the surface without intention. There is a multi-trillion-dollar industry designed around delivering cargo with intention from one point to another. So let's talk about, in a challenging situation that's full of emotions, how do we move from our empathic nature by which we're going to give sympathy to an intentional design of cargo of fierce empathy? Start with connection. The first question we ask ourselves is, how do I connect with this human? Mama was right. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I can't tell you what the exact statistic is because different studies say different things, but it's 50 to 90% that say it's not the words you say, it's how you present them in your body language. How are you going to connect with someone? Because the affective filter that needs to come down starts with human connection, because that's how we're wired. But then from there, we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable? See, accountability often is put on other people, but in the space of space creation, we need to ask ourselves, how are we holding ourselves accountable? Gandhi was onto something when he said, be the change you want to see in the world. This is why this is important, because our brain is wired with mirroring neurons that are affected and implemented by the stronger feeling in the room. When you walk into a room embodying your values and who you are, you become the mirror for someone else, and their mirroring neurons can't help but get activated. That's powerful. And then we have to identify the resistance. Let's start within ourselves. What is the resistance that you feel within yourself? Because if I am experiencing something within me and my brain is in fight, flight, or freeze, there's no chance for space creation for you. Think about what we've done so far with the cargo model. Connect, hold ourselves accountable, identify the resistance. You see, when I got to go back to that correctional officer, the St. Louis correctional officers, they gave me 30 minutes with TJ. And in those 30 minutes, I got a chance to have a conversation with TJ. He was a young man sitting in front of me. One of the questions I asked him was, what do you regret the most? He said, Mr. Cope, I wanted to prove all my doubters wrong when I walked across that stage. I had so many haters that didn't believe I could do it. All I wanted to do was walk across that stage, put my diploma in the air, and give them the business. And I said, did it happen? He goes, no, I got arrested 3 months before graduation. And I said, well, have you got it in here yet? He goes, nah, nobody likes me in here. Nobody wants me to do anything in here. They're just ready to push me down. Don't nobody like me in here. I looked at him, I said, TJ, that's them to you. I got to ask you, what do you want for you? Because for the rest of your life, you're going to have something that's going to say, I did it. Why are we letting other people control that? When you give yourself a chance to prove the doubters in yourself wrong, that's powerful. I don't know what it's going to take, but you know. You see, once you can connect, hold yourself accountable, identify the resistance within yourself, now you can speak with a gain to them. You see, I like to think about it like this. You have to spend in a currency that has value to the recipient. Because if we want their perspective to change and we want them to invest in themselves, we sure as well better know what currency matters to them. And here's a hard truth. If you get to a challenging conversation and you don't have collection of currency, it's too late. That's when empathy feels manipulative and transactional. That's why empathy has become weaponized in our society today, because we haven't done the work in the car to turn the key. The O stands for outlook, not outcome, outlook. You walk into a conversation trying to change the outcome, it will feel icky. But if you go into a conversation just looking to fractionally shift the outlook, that's a win for humanity. 2 weeks ago, I received an email from the corrections facility. It was 2 lines. Dear Mr. Cope, just want to let you know that TJ got his GED. Thanks for your work. You made an impact. I emailed back and I said, can I say congratulations to him? And they said, he's moved to another facility. TJ, I don't know where you are, but this goes out to you. You have the capacity to create change for yourself. And I can't wait for you to find your purpose. My name is Joseph. I'm the empathy guy. My purpose is to change how we implement empathy as a skill, a fierce skill, into the world we are living in today. Thank you.
Wow, who else feels more empathic now? Can we again give a round of applause for Joseph? He did amazing. And this is just the beginning. And so I hope that all of you are excited for more. So the next speaker, it's gonna be Holly. So before she comes to the stage, I will just give again a quick introduction. So Holly Cornhorn is gonna talk about the sober generation. Holly is a wife, a mother of 2, and a woman who has built her life from the inside out. She is a motivational speaker who is also getting her criminal sociology career in hopes to aid others struggling with addiction and incarceration. For years, she lived in a world where alcohol was the norm, woven into celebrations, stress, and even identity. But nearly 4 years ago, she made a decision that will change everything. She chose sobriety. What started as a personal choice became something much bigger. Holly began to see a cultural shift happening around her. One, when more people were quietly questioning their relationship with alcohol and redefining what it means to connect, celebrate, and cope. Through honesty, humor, and raw storytelling, Holly shares her journey from motherhood, marriage, and recovery. She speaks to the tension between what we are taught to normalize and what we know deep down that isn't serving us. Her message is not about perfection, it is about presence. It's about choosing a life that is real, even when it is hard. It is about our growing moments and rewriting the narrative, one sober choice at a time. So let's welcome Holly to the stage.
Thank you, Bob. I didn't start drinking in crowded basements with the other kids or at school or college parties. I started at home, in a place that was supposed to feel safe, familiar, and controlled. Sometimes it felt anything but. For me, alcohol wasn't something that I discovered somewhere out in the world. I learned quietly without anyone ever having to sit me down. It was something I inherited. And for a long time, I thought that that was normal. Normal to have numerous trips to get your stomach pumped with your friends. Even more normal to grab a dub chub on a weekday after you've blacked out and be drunk all day at high school. During this season of teenage angst and awkward life, my father's health started to completely fail. He was poisoning himself. He was losing liters of fluid from his stomach, sometimes 5, 6, and 7 liters at a time being pulled off. He was having amputations. As you can see in the photos behind me, he's wearing diabetic socks. Alcohol was poisoning him, yet he still could not put down the bottle. Until I did. I didn't expect that my own decision to get sober would ripple outward. That in my own struggle, something I did to better myself would become a mirror for someone who I had watched my entire life. My daddy. When we think about generational change, we usually talk about technology, politics, maybe culture, but there's another shift happening quietly. Not one that's changing families, communities, and the future. Sobriety. Not shame-based sobriety, not forced sobriety, but chosen sobriety. And it has been coined as the sober generation. For decades, alcohol has been a rite of passage. We toast with it, we escape with it, we even bond over it. It's in our commercials, it's in our holidays, it's in our jokes. There's a whole wine mom culture. Hey, wanna grab a beer after work? Shots for the weekends, girlies. Drinking wasn't just normal, it was expected. And all of we've been aware of the statistics too. Alcohol contributes to over 178,000 deaths a year in the United States alone, making it one of the leading preventable causes of death. But something interesting is happening right now. more people are continuing to ask a revolutionary question. What if we didn't need alcohol at all? And that question is changing everything. Since I can recall, sobriety was framed as something you only did after things went wrong. You had to hit rock bottom. You had to lose something. You had to earn sobriety through suffering. In the sober generation, we're flipping that script. We're saying sobriety, it's not a punishment, it's a choice. It's a choice for clarity, it's a choice for health, it's a choice for presence, a choice for breaking cycles that families have carried for ages. And alcohol consumption among young adults has declined significantly in the past 2 decades. In fact, nearly 50% of Gen Z adults report actively trying to reduce or eliminate alcohol consumption completely. Plus, for many of us, alcohol was never just a drink, at least not for me. It was a coping mechanism. Stress, reach for a beer. Celebrating literally anything, raise a glass. Hurt, have another. Trust me, it numbs the pain. Entire emotional toolkits were being built around numbing out. But this community, they're doing something incredibly brave. They're choosing to feel everything. The joy, the pain, the anxiety, the healing. Research actually shows that alcohol use is linked with increased anxiety, depression, and sleep deprivation, even at just moderate levels. And here's my favorite part. The sober generation, it is not defined by age. It's not just Gen Z. It's millennials who are tired of hangovers and anxiety. It's parents who want to break cycles before their children inherit them. It's veterans, professionals, students, creatives, people who looked around and realized something important. Alcohol was taking more than it was giving. And so they stepped out of the current. Not loudly, not always perfectly, but intentionally. You see, changing a paradigm doesn't happen through massive revolutions. It happens through thousands of quiet decisions. The decision to order a sparkling water instead of a drink. The decision to leave environments that revolve around intoxication. The decision to say, I'm good without it. And those choices may seem small, but culturally, they're huge. Because every time someone chooses sobriety openly, it does something powerful. It gives permission. Permission for the person standing next to them who was questioning their own relationship with alcohol. Permission for someone who thought that alcohol or that sobriety meant isolation. Permission for someone who thought they were maybe the only one. Right now, 23 million adults are living in recovery in the United States. That is about 9.1% of our entire population. And this is where the paradigm truly begins to shift. Because for generations, alcohol was tied to identity. The life of the party, the tough drinker, or me, myself, and I, as I break my remote, the social butterfly. But the sober generation is redefining identity. They're discovering something surprising. You don't lose yourself without alcohol. You actually find yourself. You actually meet yourself. Your real humor, your real creativity, your real boundaries, and your real relationships. Because when alcohol leaves the equation, authenticity steps in. And authenticity changes everything. Let's also talk about the ripple effect. By now, you probably realize that when one person gets sober, it doesn't just affect them, it affects their family, their friends, their children. Kids grow up seeing adults regulate emotions without substances. Friends realize connection doesn't require intoxication. Communities begin building spaces around well-being. Sober social spaces are expanding, not because people are boring, but because people are awake to their mental health, awake to trauma cycles, awake to the power of clarity. Just last month, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to be a committee member for a camp built totally around sober community. Supporting this entire journey, my amazing husband, who too is now sober, whoop whoop, and my sister and father watching our children for an entire week. Yes, you heard that right, my father watching my children for an entire week, something I never thought possible. Next month, me, my sister, and husband are also leading a sober camp in Canada as well. So in this new era, we are also redefining strength. For a while there, we confused strength with tolerance. Tolerance for numbing out, tolerance for just getting through. We used to ask, how much can you handle? But now the question is changing. How fully can you live? Because real strength isn't pushing away your problems. It's facing them. Real strength isn't fitting into a culture that harms you. It's having the courage to step outside of it. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do in a room full of drinks is simply say, no, thank you. Plus, nowadays, mocktail menus are growing, making it so much easier to feel social without the buzz. In fact, the non-alcoholic beverage market is projected to grow globally 30% in the next 2 years. Changing a paradigm always feels uncomfortable at first. People question it, they joke about it, they push back, but every cultural shift starts with people who are willing to live differently before it becomes normal. And that's what the sober generation is doing. They're not just choosing sobriety, they're choosing presence, they're choosing mental health, they're choosing to rewrite family stories. And changing a paradigm does not require perfection. It just requires enough people choosing a new path. And this generation is doing exactly that. One decision, one alcohol-free day at a time. Not because life is easier sober. Trust me, it is not. Woo! But because it is real. And in a culture that continuously profits from our escape, choosing to be fully present, it's quite the rebellion, a powerful one. Because we're not losing anything. See, we're reclaiming everything. So before I go, I will leave you with this. My relationship has never felt healthier. My children are best friends with their papa. They're actually watching on the live stream at home with him right now. My life is continuously growing, expanding, and getting better. And around Central Michigan University and Mount Pleasant, there are so many sober social spaces expanding, and I personally would be happy to go to a meeting with you any day, anytime. Whether it's an AA or an NA meeting, I'm here for you. So behind me are a couple local resources, the 1016 Recovery Network. thepeer360.com, they host local events, and then the Alano Club as well off Fancher Street. My name is Holly Corhorn. I am 4 years sober. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. It is so important to talk about this, right? Especially being in a college campus, to think differently of what we just take for granted. And it's important just to question what we do and why we do it. Okay, so the next speaker, give me 1 second. Perfect. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so our next speaker, is everyone excited? How's everyone doing? Yeah? Okay. Woo! Perfect. Okay, so our next speaker is Kate Philp. She's going to be talking about mental health care shouldn't start at the breaking point. So a little bit of who is Kate. Kate Philp is a community advocate, organizational leader, and a Central Michigan University graduate student pursuing her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. As a first-generation college student, she brings both academic training and lived experience into her work, shaping a perspective that is deeply empathetic and grounded in real-life application. Kate's passion for mental health advocacy is deeply personal. While navigating her own mental health challenges, she became committed to reshape how we think about care. Kate's work emphasizes that community and connection play a vital role in well-being, offering support that can help prevent crisis before it begins. So let's welcome Kate to stage.
Resilience is described as our ability to healthily adapt to change or to keep moving forward in the face of struggle. It's something that we often celebrate, the idea that no matter what we're carrying, we can keep moving forward. Resilience is powerful. It helps us survive and navigate the stressors of life. But I wonder if sometimes what we mistakenly call resilience is actually just us learning how to suffer in silence. You might be carrying something right now, a burden that no one else knows about, something heavy or unspoken, not because you want to, of course, but because somewhere along the way you learned that it's what you have to do, that you have to be strong enough to carry on, and that it doesn't feel serious enough to ask someone to carry it with you. My name is Kate, and I'm a graduate student here at Central Michigan University, training to become a clinical mental health counselor. My work and my passion surrounds how we understand and respond to mental health, not only in moments of crisis or resilience, but in the everyday situations that shape how we feel, how we cope, and how we connect with others. Resilience, I believe, is not something we only wait to discover just in our toughest moments, but it lives in the micro decisions that we make every day. And this perspective isn't just something I've learned academically, but it's something that I've had to learn personally through my own lived experiences. I'm trained in this work, but I'm also human in it. I notice patterns over time, not just in my own life, but within the communities that I'm a part of. And when I consider the stories that we've been told about mental health and well-being, I think about the beliefs that we absorb so early in life that we stop questioning them, the ones that quietly shape how we move throughout the world, how we care for each other, and importantly, how we care for ourselves. There's a quote by Simon Sinek that has stuck with me for a long time, and he shares that a leader, first and foremost, is human. And only when we have the strength to show our vulnerability can we truly lead. And while this quote is often used in the context of leadership or organizations, I've been drawn to something much deeper within it, that at the core of everything we do, before any role or responsibility that we carry, we are first human. And that empathy and vulnerability are not weaknesses, of course, but they are the very things that bring us closer together and allow us to feel seen. Over time, what shifted for me wasn't just how I understood my own mental health and willingness to be vulnerable, but how I began to see the systems of care that are around me. I started noticing how often we wait for a crisis before offering care, and how rarely we make space for radical honesty when someone asks us, "How are you doing?" Mental health, I realized, isn't only shaped in therapy rooms or in trauma recovery, but it is shaped in the everyday situations. It's shaped by the conversations we allow and what we choose to ignore. Think about when exhaustion is praised as dedication, for example, but resting is treated like laziness. What does that teach our community about whose well-being really matters? We spend so much energy on how to create meaningful spaces for other people to feel supported, yet far fewer of us have learned how to create that same sense of safety within our own minds and our own hearts. The environments and messages that we are surrounded by don't just continue to live around us, but they begin to live inside of us. And that shift happens so gradually that most of us don't even realize it's happening. And that's the part that I think we don't really talk about enough. What it feels like when, despite everything on the outside looking okay, something on the inside starts to not feel quite right anymore. Because for so many of us, there isn't a clear breaking point when it comes to mental health. Hitting rock bottom doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like going to work, staying productive, answering text messages, even smiling in conversations, even though you feel completely disconnected from yourself on the inside. It might look like telling yourself that you're just tired or stressed from extra commitments. And when I talk about this idea of struggling without a clear breaking point, I'm not just speaking from my own experiences. Studies show that this is happening all around us. Millions of students and young adults are navigating these in-between spaces where they're not quite in crisis, but they're not experiencing real stability either. These are the moments where care is most often missing. And it's one of the biggest opportunities that we have to create systems of care that prevent these normal struggles from escalating into crisis in the first place. Take large-scale studies like the Healthy Minds research at the University of Michigan, showing us that over 1 in 3 college students meet the clinical criteria for major depression or generalized anxiety. Over 1 in 3. But on the flip side, what's happening to the other 2/3? Are they truly thriving? They're likely functioning quite well in school. They're going to class, showing up in groups, but many of them are still quietly wrestling with the weight of loneliness and uncertainty about their future. They're not in crisis, and they don't appear to be in need of urgent clinical support, so most of us don't even bat an eye. These are the individuals who are slipping through the cracks. The ones whose challenges are considered developmentally normal, like surviving a bad breakup or feeling anxious for a really big presentation. But these things still leave lasting impressions on their mental health and sense of belongingness in their communities. For a long time, I lived in that space without fully recognizing it. From the outside, I was doing all the right things. I was showing up and meeting expectations. I was moving through life. But internally, something wasn't quite as steady as I had tried to convince myself that it was. I had unknowingly adopted a paradigm that I think so many of us inherit, that mental health is only something you talk about once things have already fallen apart. As long as you're productive and as long as you're seemingly holding things together, then you're okay, right? What I eventually learned the hard way is that functioning well and being well are not the same thing. You can meet the expectations of life, but still be carrying more than anyone else can see. You can look happy on the outside, but on the inside, it feels like the uphills are mountains and the downhills are cliffs. And the hardest part for me is that this didn't all happen at once. For me, this realization unfolded very slowly until one moment made it impossible for me to continue to ignore. About 5 years ago, I reached that breaking point. I needed more support than I had initially allowed myself to ask for. I thought I was being resilient by not asking for help, but I actually fell very hard into a deep depression. And now we've all experienced seasons of sadness before. I believe that feeling sad is typically a part of the human condition. We can't avoid it. But this experience for me was deeply clinical. I was unhealthy. I wasn't the best version of myself by far. I wasn't a great student or a great friend at the time. On one challenging evening, alone in my home, I had a realization that hit me like a wave, a realization that I didn't feel safe being alone anymore. And this was new for me because I had always been someone who just pushed right through the struggles. But the isolation and shame and loneliness that I was experiencing began to completely overflow. I got in my car that evening and I took a drive with no destination in mind and eventually pulled into a random parking lot, and I just sat there trying to build the courage to do something that I had never allowed myself to do before. I wanted to call for help. I picked up my phone and I dialed the National Suicide Hotline. And when I did, an automated voice appeared and stated that I was being connected to a local crisis center volunteer. And then I waited. And I waited. And for the next 12 minutes, I sat alone in my car listening to elevator music while on hold with the National Suicide Hotline because nobody answered my call. After 12 minutes, I hung up the phone and I sat in my car silently as I drove myself to an emergency room. The story that I told myself at the time was how ironic. Not even the suicide hotline was willing to give me the time of day. I know now, of course, that this situation reflects a greater issue related to appropriate funding for crisis hotlines. And to be clear, I am incredibly grateful that resources like this exist. We know that they save lives and reach thousands of people every day. In fact, over 10 million people have reached out to the 988 Lifeline since its launch in 2022. But sitting in those moments shifted the way that I view mental health care. And what struck me wasn't that no one was available to answer my call. It was that the system I turned to was designed to meet me at my breaking point, but not before it. What I learned from that night and the weeks and months of recovery that followed is that our capacity to endure pain is so incredible, but it is also very fragile. In the aftermath of that experience and the short hospitalization that followed for me, wasn't just a lesson on survival, but it was a lesson on perspective. Meaningful change doesn't have to wait for a breakdown. In fact, it shouldn't. It starts when we honor all the small battles, talking about unspoken burdens that we're carrying. And not just calling it resilient, but knowing that it's a signal to take action and lighten the load. We all know the phrase that you can't pour from an empty cup, but I had to ask myself, why did I wait until my cup was completely empty, until I decided to fill it back up again? And while that moment felt deeply personal to me, I know that it reflects something much larger. Crisis care is imperative, but another kind of care that really fills our cup is the small incremental moments of vulnerability, of self-care, connecting with the community, like being honest with a friend about how you're really doing when they ask you, how are you? These little droplets of intentionality is preventative care, work that we can do to ensure that we are rarely at risk of reaching a mental health crisis in the first place. Somewhere along the way, we learned that you have to be unwell enough to deserve care, or that you have to reach a certain level of struggle before you're allowed to ask for support. We've learned to individually push through the struggles quietly, but it's actually a part of a bigger pattern in our communities. COVID-19, for example, isn't the only public health emergency that our society is wrestling with this decade. Our Surgeon General has identified that loneliness and isolation is a growing epidemic in our country, one that is often unseen. His advisory warns that nearly half of US adults report measurable levels of loneliness. Even after COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, these reports of loneliness remain elevated. For many, feeling isolated didn't end when the pandemic did. Our Surgeon General shares that the mortality impact of being socially disconnected from a community is similar to that caused by smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15. At the core of our well-being is something much simpler than we often make it. It is rooted in connection and community. This is the preventative care that we need, and it's not clinical work. And yet so many of us are living our lives without enough of it. And this is where the shift becomes much bigger than just one person's story. What I've come to understand, both in my personal experiences and the work that I do today as a counseling student, is that the real paradigm shift begins when we fully understand that we cannot be at our lowest point to seek support. We don't wait for our bodies to completely break down before taking care of our physical health. We go to the gym. We stretch in the morning. We go to sleep when we're tired, hopefully. And this shift matters not only on an individual level, but on a collective and community one as well. This isn't just my experience. This is what we're seeing across communities. The environments we create send powerful messages about who is allowed to struggle and who is expected to endure that struggle silently. When those messages change, people don't have to wait until they're falling apart in order to feel seen. And we are not all on even playing fields here. Changing these misconceptions also means cultivating equitable access to mental health care, because meaningful support shouldn't depend on the privileges that you're afforded. For me, this is an ongoing practice, demonstrated not in big or dramatic moments, but in the quiet, everyday decisions to stay connected. When we choose to value well-being over the pressure to be perfect, we begin to notice the small, everyday moments where filling our cup actually matters. When we give ourselves permission to rest, we create spaces that encourage other people to do the same. And when we learn on a comprehensive level that mental health lives in the ordinary, everyday moments, not just during the crises, we build communities where compassion and connection are not reserved just for breaking points, but they are an integrated piece of every day in between. And that's where mental health care begins. Thank you.
Such an important topic, right? Not starting until we are completely broken down to start taking care of ourselves. Can we again give a couple? Perfect. How's everyone feeling? We have one more speaker before break. Is everyone excited? Yes. Perfect. Okay, so our next speaker, it's gonna be. Perfect. Okay. So our next speaker is Lauren Laseski, and she is going to be talking. Give me one more second. Okay. Sorry about that. Perfect. Okay. So our next speaker is Lauren Lasitsky, and she is going to give her talk about why not me, the mindset that defines the odds. So a little bit of background of Lauren. Lauren is an engineer driven by more than technical excellence. She is passionate about designing with people in mind and leading with purpose. She's earned her bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering technology with a minor in leadership from Central Michigan University in 2023, and will complete her master's of engineering from CMU in May of 2026, in a month. At CMU, Lauren was Division I student athlete in cross country and track, a mentor to younger engineers, and a frequent guest speaker in early level engineering courses. Experiences that shape her belief in resilience, discipline, and the power of showing up for others. Professionally, she focuses on designing products that prioritize safety, reliability, and the people who use them. Lauren is also a community advocate who inspires people to pursue their passions. Through storytelling, she shares messages of hope by highlighting what's possible when you keep despite the odds. At her core, Lauren is driven to uplift others, bringing energy, optimism, and a deep commitment to helping people recognize their own potential. So let's welcome Lauren.
Most people measure their lives by the big moments, the challenges we face, or the moments that change our lives. Making a career decision, a graduation, a marriage, or when we're standing at a crossroads, wondering if we're capable of something more, something bigger. But sometimes, some of life's biggest moments have been long before we're ever given the choice to make those decisions for ourselves. So for a moment, I'd like you to imagine it's the year 2000. You and your spouse have been wanting to start a family for years, month after month of hoping and waiting. Until one morning, it finally happens. You look down and you see 2 pink lines. Overwhelmed with emotion, you hug each other, you laugh, you maybe even cry a little. One of the best days of your life has just begun. Fast forward a few weeks and you head into your first ultrasound appointment. The doctor smiles and says, "Congratulations." Then they pause. You're having twins. Not just twins, identical twins. Suddenly, the excitement doubles. 2 babies, 2 futures, 2 little girls growing up together. You leave that appointment feeling like you are the luckiest parents in the world. Everything about that moment feels perfect, until suddenly, it wasn't. My name is Lauren Lasitsky, and I am an engineer, but I am also an identical twin. My twin sister and I were diagnosed with a rare disease when my mom was pregnant with us, called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, or TTTS for short. Now, twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome affects 10 to 15% of identical twin or identical multiple pregnancies. To put that into perspective, according to the CDC, there are on average 3.6 million births a year. Of those 3.6 million, 11,000 are twin births. Of those 11,000, 40 are identical twin births. And of those 40, 6 are identical twin, or 6 could be affected by twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome each year. So of those original 3.6 million births, we are looking at 0.0001% of all pregnancies that could be affected by twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome each year. So we're talking incredibly rare still to this day. Now, in short, twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome is essentially an uneven transfer of blood and nutrients shared between identical twins. This happens in twins that share a placenta, which means they also share the vital blood and nutrient network, which is crucial to development in the womb. This is what is known as a monochorionic twin pregnancy. This image by Children's Minnesota illustrates twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome very well. One twin is the donor twin and the other the recipient twin. The donor twin gives away more blood and nutrients than they receive in return, and the recipient twin receives too much blood and nutrients, which can have harmful cardiovascular repercussions. Now, this disease and this diagnosis were devastating to my parents. A disease so bleak that doctors recommended our life was not worth living. A disease giving us almost no hope that doctors couldn't provide any for themselves. And a disease so rare that in the year 2000, when searched on Google, one article came up. One option was all my parents were given shortly after hearing such a devastating prognosis. So they read that one article, and they found the one doctor of two in the nation who was actively researching this disease. They called him, and again, a prognosis so devastating that even he was unsure of taking on our case. The prognosis, with no intervention, we were given a 6% chance of survival with a very little chance of being able-bodied. Essentially, a lost cause, as most would see it. But Dr. Quintero called my parents back and said, if you can get to Florida by tomorrow, I have an appointment waiting for you. So my parents dropped everything and flew down because Dr. Quintero said, why not me? When every other person said, it's not going to be me. Once my parents arrived in his office, they began to realize the true severity of our disease. Dr. Quintero was developing his now very famous TTTS staging system. And according to Johns Hopkins Medicine, doctors can use the TTTS staging system defined by Dr. Quintero to assess the severity of each TTTS case. Quintero stages 1 and 2 represent various levels of blood volume imbalance. Stages 3 and 4 represent various levels of cardiovascular dysfunction. And stage 5 refers to death of one or both of the twins. We were in stage 4. And I was hours away from dying of a heart attack because I had all my blood and all my twin sister's blood. So Dr. Quintero opted to perform an emergent, life-saving, in utero fetal surgery to correct the uneven blood and nutrients between my sister and me. Now, as this was one of his earliest surgeries on this disease, he cautioned my parents that in cases with better circumstances than we had, one or both of the twins may not survive the surgery, and the mother was also at risk during this procedure. Miraculously, all 3 of us pulled through, which was a rarity at the time. But my mom wasn't quite out of the woods yet. She was only about halfway through her pregnancy at this time. So my parents, they flew back to Michigan. They continued about their daily lives. And fast forward to 3 months before my parents' original due date, my sister and I made our arrivals. Thankfully, we have had no lasting repercussions. But since that day, I have had medical professionals place limits on my life. But growing up, my life did not feel like a statistic. It felt like childhood. I had an active imagination. I was always creating, whether it was through home videos, drawings, or cardboard that I found stashed in the garage. At one point, I was even building obstacle courses in my backyard for my 14-pound Morky Poo puppy, who I was convinced was going to be an elite athlete. The results were less than impressive. But that mindset carried with me as I entered into sports, where I was playing against girls who were bigger, faster, and stronger than me, even playing up age brackets just to see if I could keep up. And I realized, looking back, before I even had the words for it, I was already asking a quiet question. Why not me? Now, I've spent my entire life having medical professionals, coaches, and other adults tell me I wasn't supposed to be able to do the things that I was doing. I wasn't supposed to be able to walk, so I ran cross country and track in college. I wasn't supposed to be able to learn at a normal rate, so I became an engineer. And I wasn't supposed to be able to speak, so here I am, speaking with you today. Despite it all, I allowed myself to say, why not me? And now I'm not sharing this story with you because I think I'm extraordinary, or because I want sympathy. In fact, I'm incredibly ordinary. Yes, something extraordinary happened to me. But what truly shaped my life wasn't the diagnosis, but rather how I decided to respond to it. Throughout my life, I've realized something interesting about the way that people think about limitations. We believe in them. Sometimes loudly, sometimes subtly, but consistently. Physical limits, intellectual limits, situational limits, or limits defined by circumstances rather than possibility. Now, in the face of adversity, I could have asked myself the question that many people ask: why me? Why did this happen to me? Why were the odds stacked against me? Why did I need the character building moment? But over time, that question stopped serving me. So I replaced it with a different one, a much more powerful one. Why not me? Now, when people hear this phrase, they often assume it's confidence. Like one day, you wake up believing in yourself. But that's not how it works. A why not me mindset is not something that you're born with. It's something that you develop. And this can look different for everyone involved, whether it's staying late after practice to get in extra reps, it's volunteering for that work assignment that no one else wants to volunteer for, or it's just strictly showing up for yourself. But the habit becomes clear: default participation rather than hesitation. Now, I can remember sitting in my statics class for my engineering degree, and for those of you who have taken statics, you know it's not exactly light material. Well, one day, my professor was putting problems up on the board and asking for class participation. I was continuously raising my hand, and for whatever reason, my professor continued to call on me. We probably went through 20 problems that day, and I got every single one wrong. That's right, 20 problems, 20 wrong answers. Now, I could have stopped after the first one, the fifth one, or the 10th one. I could have sat back down and worried about what my classmates thought of me. But I kept telling myself something: raise your hand before you're ready. So I went home, I practiced. Oh, okay, we'll leave it here. Raise your hand before you're ready. I went home, I practiced, and I continued to get better. And the next time class rolled around and my professor asked for class participation, I was hesitant, but I rose my hand. And this time, I got it right. And it felt amazing. Now, confidence isn't born in those big moments. It's born in the tiny acts of courage that we repeat until courage becomes normal. So then another tool that I use when I feel that fear or hesitation creep in is I'll ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? And I write it down. Try it next time. Usually the answer is embarrassment, rejection, or trying again. None of which are life-ending outcomes. But the interesting thing about fear is the longer we sit in that hesitation, the louder it becomes. But when we act, we interrupt that fear loop. So when I get the instinct to try something new, but fear creeps in, the last tool I use is the 5-second rule by Mel Robinson. Count: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, act. Send the email, speak up, take the leap. Because through those everyday acts of courage, the question stops being, what if I fail? And starts to become, why not me? Why not me when I wanted to run Division I cross country and track? Why not me when I wanted to pursue a career in engineering, which is still underrepresented by women? And why not me when I wanted to stand on a stage like this and share my story? Because that simple shift changed everything. Because statistics can describe a population, but they cannot define an individual. Probability is not prophecy, and your future is not defined by odds alone, but rather by effort, by resilience, and by belief. Now, I was told that I might never live a normal life, and rather than seeing a ceiling, I saw an opportunity to become just 1% better every day. 1% stronger, 1% smarter, 1% braver. And while that may seem small, over time it becomes unstoppable. It compounds. But that decision to become a little bit better every day begins with a choice between comfort and possibility, a choice between playing it safe and stepping forward despite the uncertainty. Because that risk that you are afraid to take today just might be the catalyst to the next big thing, the next innovation, or the next big idea. But how will we know if you don't go for it? So the next time you're wondering if you're capable of more, if your idea is worth pursuing, or if you belong in that room, why not you? Sometimes I think back to that ultrasound room in the year 2000. Two parents sitting there expecting to welcome two healthy baby girls into the world. But instead, they were given statistics, limits, and almost no hope. But what they didn't know about that moment was how much possibility was still to come. They didn't know about the challenges, the setbacks, the surgeries, or the victories that were still ahead of them. And they certainly didn't know that one day, one of those daughters would be standing on a stage like this, sharing their story. Because the truth is this: statistics don't define people, or statistics don't write stories, people do. So the next time life presents you with odds that feel like you shouldn't succeed, with a risk that feels just a little too big, or a dream that feels just out of reach, ask yourself, why not you? Because your future is not defined by probability, but rather the courage to ask one simple question: why not me? And maybe, more importantly, why not you? Thank you.
Wow, why not all of us? I love it. And I think my biggest takeaway is, again, remember that your future is not defined by probability, right? Like, you have the power to actually write it. So can we give another give her for Lauren? Yes. Okay, so now we have an intermission. So what does this mean? We have around 30-minute break in which we will have some food outside. So, feel free to grab food. We also have some activities. So I just encourage you to be engaged, to ask questions, to, if you see some of the speakers, ask them like, whatever you want to talk about. So just be, participating, active. We're gonna start again around 1:50, 55. We're gonna have a music performance before the following speakers come. So again, just be like around this area. Hopefully you like the food and also the activities. So I will see you in 20-30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, 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 everyone. We can start settling back down from the intermission. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the food and the activities. Although, sorry for the spoons. Again, if you need a spoon, it's over there. Um, Now we're gonna start our second part. How's everyone feeling? Woo, good, perfect. We still have 4 more to go, so this is exciting. So before we start with our second half, we have another music performance by Jesse Roth. So just enjoy it. Thank you.
The song is called The Earth and Me. I wrote it because I was feeling alone, but nature is cool, so I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. Also, shout out to all the staff people that make this happen. Wonderful, so just thank you to them. This is The Earth and Me. The seasons have changed again. It's always in the same way, the same day. Live and breathe just to hold my own. Sleep. The clock keeps ticking, and I'm just sitting. Don't need to worry if I just don't care. It's another year, but it's only a number I tell myself so I can have sweet dreams. It's just the earth and me. At least the dirt will hold me when I sleep. As long as the earth turning, my soul will keep on burning. Hold my ribs and breathe just deeply enough to calm myself. Don't cry and wake up the sun at night. Sing my troubles to the stars in the form of a lullaby. The wind will carry the melody, joined by the insect symphony and the leaves rustling, or maybe not. And feel the blood sing. It's just the earth and me. At least the will hold will keep on burning. Thank you. This next song is called Spring Rain. I wrote it. I was not sure what to do with my future, and I felt so much pressure to figure myself out, figure out what I was going to do with my next steps. I am the king and I am the heir, inherit the life I create. Clean my own blood and claim its water. I'm more than the name of my father. I am the warden and I am the prisoner. Keep myself world and reality blurs. Just let me grow with the flowers. Feed me sunlight so I can grow with the flowers. Let me live in the spring rain forever. I'm not ready for this. I am the earth and I am the sun. Feel the wind of changing seasons. Span 1,000 skies and none are right. Feel heat on my back even in the nights. I am the prey and I am the hunter. Chase myself into a corner. Have to eat but have to survive. Tell myself don't hurry all die. Light so I can grow with the flowers. Let me live in the spring rain forever. I'm not ready for the summer. I wrote it because growing up, I was unfortunately in a lot of friendships that were not good for me, and I could be surrounded by people, but I still felt really alone. I hope that none of you have had that same experience, but if you have, I hope you find comfort in this song. This is my love. Silver moon's milk pour over me as I cradle the flesh of the stillborn love in me. This takes hold of me again. I beg for an angel, but I'm no Christian. Wonder should I bite the hand that feeds me? Poison. Only the crickets will cry for me when I'm down on my knees. The stars are falling out the sky. The moon has gone away to hide. Where is my love? Where is my love? The stars are falling out the sky. The moon has gone away to hide. Where is my love? where is my white-winged dove? Fly away and tell me, are people as good as they seem? For us, will you find our dream? Where the wind sings lullabies every night, so I keep my window open. My jeans are on the floor, and someone's hand in mine. Reality warps a dream. Will I ever find my home? Even the orcas will wail for me when by the sea. The stars are falling out the sky. The moon has gone away to hide. Where is my love? The olive branches are breaking. The storm is coming to shake me. Where is my love? Where is my love? Where is my love? Where is my love? Where Thank you so much. That is all I have for you. And so on to the next thing. Thank you so much again.
Another round of applause. That was amazing. Perfect. Okay, how's everyone feeling? Now we're starting the second part. 4 more speakers. Are you everyone excited? Yes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so our next speaker is Janine Rashidi, and she is going to talk about how to stop asking why me. A little bit of background. Janine, AD, is dedicated to help people transform the impact of early adversity into the lasting growth and reconnect with a deeper sense of joy. Her work is shaped by lived experience. On the Adverse Childhood Experience scale, a measure of early adversity, her score was 10 out of 10, reflecting significant challenges in her early environment. After becoming a mother in her teens, Janine began to recognize repeating patterns in her life, sparking a decades-long journey into healing, neuroscience, and mind-body practices. Today, Janine is an international speaker, doctor of Ayurveda, Psych K facilitator, and creator of the EDIR process, a method designed to support the mental and emotional integration of difficult experiences. She is also #1 best-selling author of Abundance Beyond Trauma, Beth work facilitator, and founder of her practice, Goodbye Tension. For over 20 years, she has worked with individuals to reduce stress, build self-awareness, and create healthier relationships with themselves and others. Her work emphasizes practical tools for breaking cycles and fostering resilience across families and communities. A proud grandmother of 5, Janine is passionate about generational healing and believes that meaningful changes begins within. So let's welcome Janine.
Throughout human history, we've had a default explanation for suffering. Something outside of us caused it. The Greeks blamed the fates. Medieval Europe blamed sin. The 20th century brought us psychology, which at least pointed inward. But even then, the story was often that someone else had broken us. Honestly, it's quite convenient. If the cause is always out there, we never have to question what's happening in here. Think about the last time something went wrong in your life. A relationship that fell apart. A job that didn't work out. A friendship that ended badly. What was the story that you told yourself about why it happened? If you listen closely, you might notice something. The story often begins with someone else. It was the timing, bad luck. It was your parents, your boss, your partner. And if none of that fits, well, Mercury was probably in retrograde. That's the paradigm I want to shift today. So let me take you back to a younger version of me. I had a childhood shaped by early adversity. I really did have every external circumstance to blame. On the adverse childhood experiences scale, my score, this is known as an ACE score, was a 10 out of 10. I aced the ACE, but really that's not a good thing. That score reflects exposure to abuse, neglect, addiction in the home, and instability. Research from the CDC Kaiser Permanente Adverse Childhood Experiences study shows that 75% of high school students report at least one adverse childhood experience. 20% report 4 or more. And within that group, there is a significantly elevated risk across nearly all major life outcomes, including mental health issues, addiction, serious challenges later in life, even reduced life expectancy. That was the path I was on. At 15, I ran away from home. No money, just the absolute certainty that if I could get far enough away, I could finally start my real life. What I got instead was the streets. I learned how to survive on them, how to read situations, read people, how to make myself useful enough to stay safe. And then a man told me that he loved me. He was 32 and I was 15. And I believed him because he said it in a way that made me feel safe. It wasn't, but my nervous system didn't know the difference. It just recognized something familiar, intensity that felt like love, chaos that felt like home. At 16, I became a mom. And by 25, I was figuring out how to leave that abusive relationship with 2 daughters depending on me. And for the next 20 years, I kept entering and leaving relationships, chasing a sense of stability. You know that phrase? She really knows how to pick them. Yeah, that was me. I didn't know it then, but I was repeating something I didn't yet understand. And then I watched those patterns begin to echo into my daughter's lives. That's when something changed. I left home to get away from the very thing I walked directly back into. And now my daughters. I thought, what's going to happen to my future grandchildren, whom there are 5 of now? And eventually I was able to ask, what cycle did my parents experience? I later came across an idea explored by trauma researchers Peter Levine and Gabor Mate. It's not only about why things happen to you, but what patterns in you may be influencing what happens next. That insight changed everything for me. It gave me agency, and it made me an architect of my own mind. And it set me on a path, one that led me to study and now practice Ayurvedic approaches to mental and emotional well-being. Now, before we go any further, let me be very clear. I am not saying what happened to me is my fault, and I am not saying that you are to blame for the harm that you've experienced. But here's the problem. Millions of people are living in patterns they don't understand. They change jobs and find the same boss. They end a relationship and somehow attract the same partner. They move to a new big city. They even buy that gym membership. They're definitely going to use this time. They change everything externally, and within months, it all feels familiar. It's almost impressive. And so we ask, why does this keep happening to me? It's an honest question, but it's a limiting one. Eastern philosophies call this samsara, the cycle of repeating patterns. Trauma research describes the same thing through the nervous system, the body replaying experiences in search of resolution. These patterns don't always show up as memories. They can show up as choices, reactions, relationships. And after working with this, professionally and personally for decades, I can tell you, we all have them. So here's the idea I would like you to carry with you. Stop asking why this keeps happening to you. Start asking, what patterns in you may be influencing what happens next? That is where your power begins. So here I was at 15. My parents were struggling with addiction. And even though I was a straight A student with a dream of medical school, school wasn't teaching me how to live in that environment. And I believed what a lot of people in pain believe, that geography would save me. New city, new me, every time. What I didn't understand is this: you cannot outrun your nervous system. So I would leave one situation, walk straight into another. Different faces, similar pattern. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That is exactly what was happening. Research in trauma and neuroscience shows that unresolved experiences, they don't just disappear. They continue to influence how we feel, what we expect, and what feels familiar. The brain learns familiarity long before it learns what's safe. So if early experience taught you that love comes with instability, your system may begin to recognize that combination as normal. So eventually I had to ask a very different question. What is the one thing all of these situations has in common? Me. I was the common denominator. Now, that realization wasn't about blame. It created clarity. My perspective changed from seeing my life as something that was only happening to me to recognizing my role in what happens next. Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." He was pointing to the power of the space between what we've been through and what we do next. And learning how to access that space can change the trajectory of our lives. So what do we do with this? A change in perspective only matters if it becomes a practice. If the pattern is inside, then the work happens inside. So I'd like to try something with you. If you feel safe and comfortable with me, please close your eyes. Now join me in taking a nice big deep breath in through your nose, the belly rises. Long exhale out your mouth, the belly falls. Now I want you to get big. Imagine you are standing on top of a mountain, looking at your life from a distance. Don't judge, just observe. What keeps repeating in your life? You can't see the shape of a maze from inside it. Getting big is the first step. Now let's get curious. Ask yourself, where did this pattern begin? What did I learn to expect, accept, and believe? Now get honest. With courage, acknowledge, I may be playing a role in what happens next. Courage is what makes change possible. You may slowly begin to open your eyes, but see if you could stay on the mountaintop. Now, the moment that changed my life, it wasn't when I left my last relationship. It was in a therapy session. And for the first time, I could hear my life reflected back to me. And suddenly, I could see it. I chose them. No shame. No anger. Just truth. I began to see the space between what happened, what I kept allowing to happen. Because the part of me that kept choosing those situations, she wasn't broken. She kept choosing what felt like home. And when I could see that clearly, with compassion instead of judgment, something changed. If I could participate in creating these patterns unconsciously, just imagine what I could create consciously. And it didn't happen overnight. It took decades of asking again and again, what is my role in this? As my life gradually began changing in ways that I could finally feel and see. So the next time you hear yourself say, "This always happens to me," pause. Get big. Get curious. Get honest. Take ownership of what comes next. Every major change in understanding has required us to let go of a comfortable story. This one asks something similar. To let go of the idea that your suffering is caused entirely by something outside of you. Because it's incomplete. Incomplete stories keep us stuck. Stop asking why this keeps happening to you. Instead, ask what in you may be influencing what happens next. When you begin to make the unconscious patterns in your life conscious, you stop calling it fate. And that is freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janine. Can we give another round of applause? Hey. I'm a little biased as a neuroscience major. I love everything with the brain. And, it's so important to recognize that we have the power in our own lives to actually determine what we do next. Alrighty, our next speaker is Clement Moore, and he is gonna give his talk about why most majors are really minor and versus or, the choice that changes everything. So a little bit of background of Dr. Clement. Dr. Clement Moore Jr. was legally blind at 21. A community paid for the surgery that restored his sight. His mother's last words were simple: "Promise me you will give back." He's spent the last 25 years keeping that promise. Dr. Moore is the founding executive director of Eye Care for Michigan, a mobile vision nonprofit serving homebound senior statewide, and president and CEO of America Advantage Home Care. He invented the Horizon AI, a provisional patented AI platform detecting early marketers for Alzheimer's and dementia through a routine eye exam. An entrepreneur in residence and a lecturer at Central Michigan University's College of Business Administration, host of the Home Healthcare Today TV show on WMYD TV 20 Detroit, and best-selling author, Dr. Moore delivered his first TEDx talk in 2017, 10 years ago, and he returns with a decade more of promises delivered. Holder of a Bachelor of Science for Kettering University, 2 master's degree, and a Doctor of Business Administration for Benedict University and Argosy University, respectively, and a Cornell University postgraduate certificate, he has secured more than $1.5 million in grants and earned 25 plus awards, including recognition from Governor Whitmer and Black Enterprise magazine. He lives in the metropolitan Detroit and his wife Nicole, and with his wife Nicole and their 4 sons. So let's go and welcome Dr. Moore.
All right. How many of us remember being asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Show of hands. All right. How many did not know the answer? A show of both hands. All right. So similar to most of you, when I was 17 years old, I was asked that same question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Not what do you want to become, right? So a guidance counselor, when I was 17, sat me down in high school and said, Clem, you got to figure this out. Pick a lane, pick a major, stay in it. All right. So I did that. I went off to university and I became an information scientist. But then life happened, like life happens for everyone, right? No one told me what no one is telling others, that most of our majors are really minor. There are millions of students that are sitting in high school classrooms, undergraduate classrooms around the world wondering, what will I become? So as these students think about what they're going to become, there's something else we're not telling them. We're not telling them that they may change their jobs 12 to 15 times within a career. We're not telling them that in many cases, the World Economic Forum lets us know that your core job skills, they're gonna change over the course of the next few years. McKinsey has told us that 375 million workers, their jobs, the work that they do is certainly going to change. So the paradigm has changed. It has certainly shifted. But what are we still doing? We're preparing students from Michigan to Mumbai, from Toledo to Thailand, from Flint to Frankfurt to prepare for a job, pick a major, stay in that job, and maybe one day you'll retire after 35 to 40 years from that company and get that gold watch, that 401k, or if you're really lucky, a Winnebago. That world is gone, and the most urgent, necessary, life-changing question, I don't know if we're all brave enough to build a new road, a new path for individuals. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about my mom. My late mother held multiple roles. I didn't know she was a CFIO, which is a Chief Fix-It Officer. I had no idea when she was driving me around as a youngster to various clinic appointments because, I had asthma and I had allergies, and I also had some vision issues growing up. So whether she was taking me to a pulmonologist appointment for my asthma, or whether she was taking me for my biweekly allergy shots, or even to an eye doctor, she was preparing me to think about and versus or. It's not as though she was split between multiple identities or having an identity crisis. She knew that she needed to be a mother and a wife. She realized that she was also a business owner, along with my dad, in a body shop called C&M Collision. I never knew what the ampersand was. I thought C was like dad, Clem, and M was mom, Clem and mom, running the shop. My mom was also a grant writer. She wrote a grant application to an organization that paid for the removal of my cataracts because I was born with congenital cataracts. She promised me that she would do all that she could to help me get through school if she could find someone to pick up that surgery. In turn, I promised her I would pay it forward. All right, so paying it forward for me today means I drive around Detroit and other parts of the state delivering vision in a mobile eye care unit. Because guess what? The folks who have vision health issues in many cases have been told to choose or. Walk into a clinic, get transportation to a clinic if you lack transportation, or go without access to vision. These individuals did not choose to have the inability to access vision, but we chose to close that gap. That's what full circle looks like. So students ask me, like, Dr. Moore, what is your gig? Like, dude, what do you do, right? So simply put, I do a lot, right? But I do a lot because it's not and. The definition is simple. I'm an information scientist and a healthcare CEO and a professor of entrepreneurship and an entrepreneur in residence and a television show host every Saturday morning. A best-selling author, an AI inventor, a husband, and a father. And nearing the age of 50, I'm a registered nursing student. Now, it's not about me, it's about each of you. And it's about the millions of students that are out there struggling to try to develop their identity or answer the singular question, what will I be whenever I grow up? So there's this myth tied to or. Let's just go there, right? Pepsi or Coke, Monster or Red Bull or Celsius. Don't do and with any of those three. Vegan or vegetarian, walk or run. The myth of or also ties into our careers. Are you going to be an engineer or an entrepreneur, a doctor or a teacher? The truth of and, you do not have to choose. Just keep becoming. Historically, Leonardo da Vinci. Hey, I'm going to develop a helicopter, if you're Leonardo da Vinci, and a parachute. Right. Now that's some proactive thinking, just in case this thing goes down. I got a plan. Da Vinci, a painter and an engineer, an anatomist and an inventor. All right. How about Benjamin Franklin, right? Printer and a diplomat and a scientist, a founding father. And what I have on today, the creator of bifocals. All right. Mae Jemison, another example, right? A doctor and an engineer, a dancer and an astronaut. They did not pick lanes like my mom didn't pick lanes. They built roads. All right. Adam Grant, a Wharton professor and organizational psychologist, spends a lot of time talking about the most interesting people. The most interesting people don't just stay in one particular lane. They think about things deeply enough to have the courage to change lanes. They connect the most distant dots. But oftentimes in the academy, whether it's vocational school or higher education, we teach students to specialize. The academy rewards depth, which is vertical, as opposed to breadth. But the world that we live in and the world that we are creating rewards integration. Who are the polymaths? Polymaths are the individuals that live at the intersection, that understand that their major may just define them or contain them. The antithesis to the misnomer that a jack of all trades is a master of none, I challenge that. The master of only one is oftentimes confined and defined by that. All right, so I got some questions to ask you, right? As you think about the journey and you think about even Albert Einstein, right? Where Albert Einstein pointed to the illusion that our greatest power is the ability to change, like change our minds and change directions, right? As you think about Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, and Apple still being one of the most valuable tech companies in the world, combine calligraphy and music. Think about the questions. What skills do I need to build multiple careers? That's a paradigm shift for us. Those of us that are leaders in higher education, how can we prepare students to not only think about their electives, but to elect to believe that the major is simply a minor? What relationships do I need to cultivate across industries? Because I can't do it alone. I'm going to need the help of others. How do you create something that Google can't search for or ChatGPT can't articulate? And what does reinvention look like for you as you go back and think about being age 17 to what and who you have become over time? Vastly different than that 17-year-old. Another question, not what will I become, but how do I keep evolving? How do I stay courageous enough, curious enough, disciplined enough to do and to be more? Now, I'm not going to say that this is just a straight line path, and I'm not going to say that I always thought about being a polymath, and I'm not going to say that when we think about some of the most commonly used terms like be and to and of, those three words in the dictionary have greater popularity and use than the word and. I learned that when I struggled or whenever I actually failed. So I was in a pursuit of a vertical path to a college presidency that got derailed. Obviously and apparently, I have become more than a college president by being right? And in multiple respects. When a multi-million-dollar door closed in my face most recently, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to build something that same day. I didn't knock again, I didn't collapse, because like most of you, I realized that there had to be something bigger. There had to be something behind and beyond defeat and disappointment. Perhaps it was redirection. Because people who don't stand in the hallway waiting for the next opportunity build an entirely new room. The late W.E.B. Du Bois taught us, it's not what you will do, but it is who you will become doing it. My mom answered that question, right? A van today for me, a promise, a life fully unapologetic. And I'm still answering that question today. So what I want you to carry out of the room, it's not about the major. And for those that have already graduated years ago, you realize that perhaps that major was really minor. The most important work of your life will happen at the degrees and the intersection of your major. As you think about climate change is geopolitical, it's economic, it's social, and it's technological. As you think about providing access to healthcare for millions of individuals who do not have it, it's logistical and economic and medical and even spiritual for many. The second most powerful question goes back to that and. As long as you don't answer and with Red Bull and Celsius and Monster, you got the right answer. And thirdly, the world needs whole people building things that it has never seen. The future does not belong to a single major by design. It belongs to people who are brave enough to be whole. So as you exit, as you ponder over the weekend, what will you build? Who will you become in building it? And what are you waiting for? Thank you. Thank you.
That was great. I feel like being us in a university is very important how we think about the future and our education. So can we give another round of applause? Perfect. So before I introduce my next speaker, since we have been sitting for a little bit too much, let's gonna do what we do like in baseball, you know, the 7th inning. So can everyone just stand up for a quick second so we all kind of stretch since we've been sitting all day. Yes, and just, just stretch for a little bit. We have 2 more to go. We're excited for it. Hopefully if it's good. Perfect. All of you can just sit down whenever you feel like. Ooh. Perfect. Okay, everyone doing good? Yes, perfect. Okay, let's gonna introduce our next speaker, Lisa Blosser, and with her speech, how to engineer your own wake-up call. A little bit about Lisa. Lisa didn't set up to rethink leadership. She was living the dream, flying around the world, coaching executives, shaping organizations, until one day she realized she was breaking under the weight of very patterns she had been celebrated for. The moment of reckoning became a lens. What we normalize, we can't transform. Today, she works with founders and executive teams to reveal the invisible dynamics shaping how they lead, decide, and relate. Her gift is naming what others can't quite see: the unspoken agreements, inherited roles, and subtle choreography holding teams in place. Her work is about recognizing when high performers become self-erasers, when survival strategies become cages, and when organizations keep themselves stuck. With a rare blend of systematic clarity and emotional intelligence, she helps leaders unbind what's old, so new forms of leadership, culture, and capacity can emerge. So let's welcome Lisa.
Over 20 years ago, I set about doing something different with my life. I stopped molding my resume into the perfect match for a job description I wasn't even excited about. And I decided to write my own. It said, audaciously, I want to travel the world, learn from the best leaders, and help organizations evolve. And not long after I wrote it, I landed a job at a consulting firm that paid me to do just that every day for over a decade. It was the richest, deepest, most personal education I never could have designed. Truly my dream job. It was so exciting and so intense. I was on at least one plane a day, sometimes several, for about 300 days a year. But I loved the work. And I loved it so much that over the years, I started losing perspective. My airline miles were piling up, so was my exhaustion. I was never home during the week, and when I added international travel, it took my weekends, my energy, and my life. About that time, I was starting to get this gut sense, like, was there something else out there? Which surprised me, because this was my dream job. Like, what do you do with that? And when I am in that place, I search for inspiration. So I had signed up for a leadership program at Georgetown University. And through that program, they gave me a coach. His name was Mark, and he was brilliant. I felt fully supported by him. And one day, he asked me a question that changed my life. With true curiosity, he very slowly asked, so help me understand. You got on a plane and you flew 20 hours to Australia with pneumonia because you needed to show up for the client. I was confused and a little irritated. I had just said those words, so I did not know why he was asking. And still not getting it, I clarified with this. Well, it was walking pneumonia, and they shouldn't put that in the title if it's not a possibility. No change in his face. Instead, he calmly leans forward, and he hits me with this. And does that seem normal? Yes, because it was normal to me at the time, 100% totally normal. But I could tell from his question, he wanted me to give that a second look. He was holding up a mirror, and I was dodging it. So I left that conversation. I could not stop thinking about this question. Is that normal? I was cycling through my whole life asking it. What are all the things I do regularly? So here's a few. I regularly only slept a few hours during the week. Is that normal? I don't know. A lot of people around me were doing that. I had developed some not travel eating habits because I would get in late all the time. 10:30, 11 at night, there's nothing open, there's no room service. I'm in a tiny hotel. So I started counting peanut M&Ms as protein after 10:30. Is that normal? I don't know. It seems resourceful to me. But maybe not normal. 20 hours in the plane with pneumonia, apparently not normal, but I had just learned that one. So now I'm seeing my whole life with this new lens, and I can't unsee it. And it turns out seeing is very important because we can't accurately see the patterns we are living in. This is backed by research. Tasha Eurich studies self-awareness, which, despite the title, is not about how we view ourselves. It is how accurately that view matches how other people experience us. She, in her research, surveyed thousands of people. The percent of people who believe themselves to be self-aware, get ready, 95. 95%, which is a gorgeous level of confidence. Good for us. However, when you include agreement from someone who knows that person, that accuracy rate plummets to about 10 to 15%, which is a staggering gap, and it means we don't see ourselves clearly, and we don't know it. And in my work with leaders, this is dangerous because success makes it worse. The higher you go, the harder it is to get honest feedback. And with that, your self-perception starts quietly drifting away from reality, but no one tells you. And this is really true for all of us. We start living in this bubble that we cannot see. I was starting to get a sense of my own bubble and seeing it a little bit from a distance, which is where all wake-ups begin. So the very next day in class, I learned something that absolutely blew my mind. It explained what I was doing and what I had seen other leaders doing for years. I learned that when people are no longer getting the results that they want, they will do a very curious thing. They will do more of what is not working. They will double down on effort. They will try harder, work longer, spend more hours. They will burn themselves to the wick in the hopes of better results. And I found this so interesting because we all do it, but the group who does it the most, high performers. And that made me curious. Why would we do that? On paper, it doesn't make any sense. But we do it because it works for most of our life. And it gets rewarded, and then it becomes our go-to move. And like any go-to move, we can overplay it. So we start reflexively reaching for an action. An action question sounds like this. How can I do this better, more efficiently, faster? What action can I take to get the results that I want? Action, results, within the same frame. It's called a first order question. It's very effective for many things. There's another move. It's the one we tend to avoid. It backs up a step and asks us to look at ourselves, the person taking the action. What are our beliefs, our values, our stories, our assumptions? It's called an examination question, and it's much more effective for a breakthrough, which is how I got mine. Let me show you how. For me, the action question that I was living in was, how can I recover faster so I can keep doing this work that I love? Like, do I take more supplements? Do I manage my jet lag better? That's the question I was in. It never occurred to me to ask, what assumption am I making about this work that I love? And that made me realize I was walking around, not out loud, underneath, with an assumption that to do this work that I so loved, I had to do it in this job, at this pace, with this intensity, and this many airplanes, and this many peanut M&Ms. And that gave me my aha wake-up question. Can I do this work that I love at a pace that's healthy? I get that that seems like an obvious question from the outside. From inside the bubble, it's not. I couldn't see it. I just truly could not see it. I didn't have a lot of evidence of it around. So now I've got this question, and I couldn't see it for myself. But when I learned these two questions, the action and the examination, I could see it immediately in the work that I do. That was easy. It was harder to see it for me. So in my work with organizations, the way it looks is the action question might sound like, how do we get people on board with this change? Right? I hear that one all the time. But the examination question asks, is this even the right change? And from that question, you can tell why we would avoid it. It has huge consequences. It can blow things up. And in some organizations, you will be punished just for asking it, because now you're slowing us down. And now you're questioning something we've already invested in, so we don't even want to look at it. And that is true in our life as well. It's threatening. So we can't even look in that direction. So instead, what we do is we defend rather than examine. I was not examining my pattern. I was defending it. Because underneath, I didn't really want to give it up because I didn't believe there was another way. And I could not get to my wake up without examining that belief. I assure you, you will not get to a wake up call by defending the current pattern you are living in. So now I had this new lens and this new question, but I had no way forward. I didn't know what to do with it. And then life made space for me to think about it. I got very sick and my body completely stopped. I developed severe fatigue. I was in bed 4 months and sick for about a year. I had no idea how to recover. So I did what I knew how to do. I mustered every piece of strength that I had, and I got on an airplane and I left the country. Only this time, I went somewhere different, and I went for me. I found this amazing ocean-side retreat center in Mexico. Beautiful. Far, far, far from the pace that I was living. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I wasn't there to perform, to deliver anything, or to even be useful to anyone. I could just be, and I could go slow. Two things totally foreign to me at this time in my life. So it took me a while to adjust, but about 2 weeks in, I'm sitting high up in the jungle in a meditation class with a very serious meditation teacher, beautiful open air studio overlooking the ocean. And she is deep into an Om when a jungle animal starts calling at the same time. It sounded like this. Nobody moved. No one smiled. No one laughed. I lost it. I could not stop laughing. I was howling. I was doubled over. Tears were coming down my face. I could not control it. And at that moment, I realized I have forgotten how to laugh like that. Just pure joy. It is how my 2-year-old laughs, utter disregard for the volume, just out loud and happy and joyful. And like a timing cue from a movie, a song started drifting into the studio, singing, "There's a way, there's a way, there's a way." And from that place, I found I could imagine a new future. And I started building the life I have today, which is just as rich, with work I love just as much, with leaders who are just as inspiring, and almost no peanut M&Ms. Amazingly, that job description I wrote 20 years ago, I still get to do that work, only I do it a little in reverse. I absolutely get to help organizations evolve. I still learn from the best leaders, and occasionally, only occasionally, I travel the world. But I work differently because I'm different. And my coach is the one who helped me see the patterns that I was living in. And now I get to do that for the executives who are shaping the future of work for all of us. It is the greatest privilege and very full circle. It took me probably a few years to go back and look at the pieces of my wake up, but you can build it from where you are today. Here's what you need. First, find a mirror, somebody far outside of your system who can reflect back to you what has become ordinary to you. Ask them, what do you see me treating as normal that might not be serving me? Or can you see something that I can't see? Second, get out of action and into the big, scary examination questions. What stories are you telling yourself? What assumptions are you living in? What beliefs are you holding on to? And third, change the context. Get far outside of your pace, your cues, your reward system. You do not have to leave the country, and you do not have to go to a retreat center. But you do have to get away from what is familiar. Because a life-changing shift typically does not begin with doing more. It begins the moment that you see clearly what you had mistaken for yourself. Thank you.
Amazing. Can we give another round of applause for Lisa? Alrighty, time has flown by. We have our last speaker here in a second, but are we excited? Are we fired up? Yay!
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so last but not least, we have Sarina El Amin, and she's gonna talk about when an elder dies, a library burns. A little bit of background. Sarina is a cultural anthropologist, author, and founder of Legacy Story Keepers, where she helps individuals and communities preserve their life stories and life experiences before they're lost to time. Known for her powerful ability to connect storytelling with identity, culture, and purpose, she has guided people around the world in documenting what matters most. She's also the creator of Enliven Your Soul, creating transformative travel experiences that foster deep reflection and global connection, and the founder of Beautifully Wrapped, a platform that explores the cultural and spiritual significance of hat wrapping. Whether on a stage or in intimate settings, Sarina brings a rare depth, inviting people to think differently about legacy, connection, and the stories that are leaving behind. So let's go and welcome Sarina.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ay, ay, ay. "46 years, 16,972 days to be exact. That's how long I've been living here on Earth. But like the stories that we've heard today, my life changed on one day in particular. So I want to take you back to July 10th, 2019. It was a beautiful summer day. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, the breeze was breezing. It would be one of those perfect days. But it wasn't perfect. It couldn't be perfect because it was the day that we were burying my mother. Now, if you've ever lost someone close to you, you know that there's such a thing as before death and after death. And in the after they're gone, your own life shifts in ways that you could have never expected. You look around and things just look different. They feel different. And you discover that what you thought was so important really wasn't important at all. And what you let slip through your fingers is what you should have been holding on to the tightest. So I'm standing at my mother's grave, I'm looking down, and my mind is completely still. But in the weeks and months after her burial, memories started flooding in, and those memories turned into questions. Mom, how did you know Dad was the one? Mom, how come you never really hung out with your cousins when we were growing up? Mom, why did you go back to school and get that PhD when clearly you didn't need it for your career? Mom, that corn pudding, mine isn't the same. What was special about yours? Mom, how did you raise these 3 kids? Mom, how did you handle losing your mom? Mom, is it perimenopause? My hair, something's going on. Like, what's happening? Mom, mom, mom. All of these questions just started flooding in. And every time it would hit me that, oh my God, my mother is gone. She will never be able to answer any of these questions again. Just 3 years after losing my mom, my father passes. And a whole new set of memories and a whole new set of questions stacked on top of the ones that I was already carrying. Now, with both parents gone, I began to truly understand the reality of the African proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library burns. In less than 4 years, I had watched 2 of my most important libraries go up in flames, only to realize that I hadn't checked out nearly enough books. Now, in the after death, you start to reflect a lot. And I started to wonder, why didn't I ask these questions when I had the time? You know, when my parents got sick, we made sure that all of the financial inheritance things were in order. We're taught, write the will, get the trust, protect the house. We get together what we can count. But what about our cultural inheritance? Nobody told us to sit down and record the stories. Nobody taught us to ask the deeper questions. And so we just didn't. After talking with friends, I realized that I was not the only one dealing with this. This after-death longing for answers, it was not just a me problem, it was a we problem. Think about it. Is there anyone in your life that you wish you could ask more questions of? Is there anyone who is 6 feet in the ground? And if you could, you would go down there and excavate just one more answer. Now, with my father, I learned that it's not just death that robs us of these stories, because he was dealing with something called Lewy body dementia. And there are over 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's. What this means is that the person can physically still be here, but the stories are locked away on shelves that are inaccessible. So our society has all of these systems for passing down money, passing down property, but the stuff that I was missing, the stories, the knowledge, the family meaning, we have almost no systems for passing that down. No guidelines for preserving our cultural inheritance. Now, I am a cultural anthropologist, and so I travel the world, and when I go around, I look at different cultural phenomena. You know, I want to see how these different ways, how these different societies do this thing called being human. And when I look around, I realize that not every society has such a flippant attitude when it comes to elder knowledge. I was in Senegal, and I was at a meeting about picking up trash. They were talking about cleaning up the neighborhood. Now, at this meeting, people would get up on the mic, and this lady right here would interrupt them. She would come and grab the mic and just, and I said, my God, I hate litter. I absolutely hate litter, but she must be fed up. You know, she said, I am a granny. I'm not taking this anymore. So afterwards, I asked my friend, I said, who was that lady that kept interrupting like that? And why did they keep letting her do it? He smiled and he said, girl, those are the professional griots. They come and we bring them to our groups to tell us about the history of the speaker. They tell you about your mom, your grandma, your auntie, your uncle. They give you your heritage in that space. And I thought, oh my God, here we are at a meeting about trash. Not some fancy dinner, not a state event, but a meeting about trash. And even in that meeting, they saw value about family heritage. What does it look like to live in a society like that? So much so that they have whole industries and people get paid to record these stories. Now, I know some of you may say, Zarina, I don't want to know all the details about my family. Some of that stuff, I want it to be buried forever. I would cringe if somebody got up there telling everybody about my family. But what if I told you that even knowing the hard stuff can put you at an advantage? So Emory University, they did a study called Do You Know? And they asked these children random questions about their identity. Things like, do you know where your grandparents met? Random things like this. And what they found is that the kids who knew the most, those kids had higher levels of self-esteem. They were more resilient. They had faster bounce back skills. And I've seen this up close in my work now with helping people to record their stories. I'm going to tell you about a dude. We're going to call him Marcus, all right? So Marcus was interviewing his dad. And his dad was one who was kind of seen as avoidant and a little bit standoffish. Whenever things got tough, he was nowhere to be found. Now, during the interview, Marcus discovered that his grandfather, a man he had never met, was actually an abusive, angry man. So much so that when he drank, everybody in the house ran to take cover. That was the world that Marcus had grown up in. And so when things got tough and Marcus's dad would leave, it wasn't because he didn't care. It was because he spent his entire life terrified of turning into his father. Do you think that Marcus, now understanding this, gives him a different view of his father? He no longer saw him as some avoidant coward. He saw him as the protector that he was truly trying to be. When you know where you come from, you move differently. And that's on the individual level. But then let's look on a society level, because when you have this knowledge as a society, you are stronger as a nation. So I was invited to go to Turkey on a delegation trip, and they took us to this manuscript restoration facility. Basically, it's a book hospital. So they were taking these ancient texts and they were restoring them with the level of care that you might imagine the Louvre using on some $100 million painting. They were meticulous. They were patient. Every page mattered. Every letter mattered. Now, Turkey is an ancient society, thousands of years old, right? And what they know is that you cannot let your libraries decay. What you protect now, today, gives your nation a place to go from. Now, we see the same thing in China, the same intentionality in Japan, the same thing along the Silk Road. All of these old societies invest in preserving their knowledge, all the way down to the family level. So the real question becomes then, why are we so focused on protecting what can be replaced while neglecting what cannot? The cars we love, they depreciate the moment you drive them off the lot. The money we're working so hard to protect and pass down, financial planners will tell you that inherited wealth is generally gone in just 3 years, not 3 generations, 3 years. But the stories, the wisdom, the lived experiences, the lessons learned the hard way, those don't lose value. They only appreciate with time. And you don't have to be a celebrity for your story to have value. Now, when I was in DC, I was visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I only had about an hour. The place is huge. You cannot do it justice in an hour. So I decided that I was going to run around and I was going to snap pictures of every personal journal or autobiography or firsthand account that I could find. And I came across this one here. This is the autobiography of a man by the name of Omar ibn Said. Omar ibn Said was taken from Africa in the 1800s, brought to the United States, enslaved, put into a predicament that none of us would ever want to be in. Now, he wrote his autobiography in Arabic, a language that no one else around him knew. He didn't write it to come and think that one day it would be in the museum, let alone a national museum. He wrote it because he had to put down the things that he had experienced. Now, if he had not, we would not know about that period of time through firsthand account. And so what we discover now was based off of his courage and his intentionality back then. The elders around you are not just old people waiting to fade away. They are one-of-a-kind additions of documents that exist nowhere else on earth. So we must treat them as the walking libraries that they are. And we must use the same urgency that we use to protect our financial wealth to protect their stories. Now, if you still have parents or elders in your life, the window is open right now. You can choose to walk through, because when you walk through, you may be surprised at what you find. I'm going to tell you about Erica real quick. So Erica was very interesting to me because growing up, she and her immediate family all lived in the Midwest, all right? All of her extended family, though, they lived down in Florida. Now, it wasn't a big deal. It just was what it was. But during the interview with her grandmother, Erica learned that, in fact, it was a big deal after all, because 50 years earlier, her grandmother had discovered a family secret that knocked her to her core. So much so that she packed up her 4 kids, moved across the country to a place where she had no family, no friends, no foundation at all. She built up a new life from scratch. Now, Erica's whole existence goes back to her grandmother making that decision. And she had no clue that it had even come about. Now, you would think that maybe Erica doesn't talk to her grandmother that much, but they were like best friends. They ate together, they cooked together, they worshiped together. Sometimes the stories that we're missing can be right beside us, but you have to go and excavate them. So here's what I want you all to do this week. I want you to sit with a parent or an elder, maybe a neighbor, a family member, or a mentor, and I want you to ask them one simple question. What's something you learned the hard way? And when you ask, just listen. Don't check your phone, don't scroll Instagram, don't rush to offer advice or try to redirect them because you think they're going off on some tangent. Just listen. Because when you sit with an elder, you're literally checking out a book from a library that won't always be open. And what you find sometimes is not just context or facts. It can be missing pieces of your own story. So I want you to ask the questions, record the stories, and tell your own. Because one day you will be an elder. And the question is not just going to be how much money you left in your bank account. It's going to be, are the stories, your wisdom, your lived experiences, the lessons that you learned the hard way, are they there on the shelves for those to find behind you? Or did you allow your library to burn and be buried with you? The answer depends on what you decide to do today, because none of us are promised tomorrow. Thank you.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Wow. And that was our last speaker. Another round of applause. Yay. Wow. Okay. How's everyone feeling? Great. Perfect. Okay, so we are almost done. But the most important part is this one, right? Which is the part of saying thank you. This event was not possible without a lot of people, a lot of planning, and I just wanted to highlight them here. So first of all, thank you to our sponsors and partners, starting with the College of Entrepreneurship. So there is a group of students here. We're part of the Wakeling Gender and Entrepreneurship Scholars, WGE, and pretty much we were part of this cohort, and we were thinking about entrepreneurship, innovation, and the future. And thanks to them, we were able to sponsor this entire event. I want to give a shout out to Julie Messing, who was our lead, our faculty lead during this program. Yay. And everyone who's part of the program, we are 8 scholars, and all of us are around here helping out, doing a lot of things. So again, thank you so much for the support planning this event, as well with the College of Business, who they were the sponsors, and thanks to them, we have all of these. Secondly, most importantly too, is the broadcasting team. Can we give them a huge shout out to all of them? Yes. We have around 5 cameras. We have people back in the back, controlling all the live stream and everything, and it truly is amazing that all of these is done by students. I was impressed by the level of professionalism, the timeliness. I haven't even had to worry about it. So thank you so much for being here during the entire event, broadcasting everything, because it's great seeing everyone in person, but most importantly, people online. So thank you again, all of you. Yay. Perfect, as well as other partners such as the honors program and also printing services and university events for collaborating with us. Then we have the actual organizers. So I was the lead organizer. I have the TEDx license, but there's an entire team, as you can see here, almost 15, 17 people helping out. We were divided in different categories. We have a speaker curation, we have outreach, operations, and marketing, and all of them did an amazing job that made this event possible. So again, another applause for all of them for the hard work. Yay! Great. And then this is a broadcasting team. I just mentioned the crew, but this is every single one of them. And you can see how many they're here, one in each camera. So again, thank you so much for being here. I would also want to thank you again, the music performers that you saw before. All of them are students who decided to, on a Saturday being here and participate, and I really appreciate that. Also, we have a photographer around. Her name is Justice. Also, thank you, Justice, for taking pictures of all of us. Yay. And especially for all of you being here, making this possible. It is very special. I am not an event planner. I said this last year and I said it again. I don't like it. I don't like planning things, organizing these. It's a lot of work, but it truly is worth it when I see everyone here. And this event coming to life is very, very meaningful. I'm graduating, so I hope that the person who's taking next year, hopefully this event continues for years to come, and we create this continuity, because I truly think that with TEDx, we have a great platform to share our stories, and we don't have to be a CEO or a president to share your story, right? Each of your stories is worth it, worth sharing, worth spreading, and worth connecting. And I really thank you, all of you, for being here with an open mind, to our speakers who put their heart sharing their stories, their experiences. We were practicing last night here, everyone who helped move the letters. There's so many people behind the scenes. And I'm just here speaking, I guess, but there is truly a ton of people who made all of this possible. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming here, having an open mind. Hopefully you change your paradigm and think differently. I think if you just take something from this event, is just question yourself a little bit more, right? I think changing the paradigm is a more intrinsic question, and I think it's that all of us need, right? Instead of judging others or blaming others on this, it's just like question yourself, and doesn't mean judging yourself. It's just challenge yourself to be better every single day, as many of the speakers mentioned. And when you change yourself, you can change the world. I wanted to give also a special shout out to my family, who they are not here because I'm from Spain, I'm an international student, but they were watching the entire live stream these 4 hours. Yes, so thank you to them. But I say this last year, they watched the whole live stream. they don't speak English. My mom was texting me, what are they talking about? You know, like, no, she said that she loved all of your outfits. She was like, oh, that girl is really pretty. So I want to say this to them in Spanish so she actually understand everything. Mamá, papá, James, Annie, mi preciosa Alice, Celito y Claudia, muchísimas gracias por ver la conferencia un año más, cambiando el paradigma. Muchas gracias por apoyarnos desde todo el mundo. Estamos muy contentos de estar aquí un año más. Fire up. Yeah. I promise I didn't say anything bad. I didn't insult anyone. Nothing like that. No, but yeah, this is very emotional. I'm graduating in a month. I'm very excited to be a CMU alumni. It really, thank you. It truly means a lot to me. Tyler Thompson, who started the event 3 years ago, and he was, trusted me to continue it years following, and I'm also hopefully trusting someone else to take it next year, right? I think for everything, you have to say yes to opportunities, say yes to things. People who apply to be a speaker when they saw the flyer and deciding to apply and following through, right? Everything is possible if you set your mind to, and I truly believe so. And I hope that all of you took that away with this event. So thank you, all of you. Yay. Okay. And one last thing. So we had, all of you check in, and we have like a little gift for someone. So we choose a randomizer for everyone who checked in. Because last year I forgot to do this. So the winner, and I will show it here because I just put all your names in this randomizer. So if the winner is here, we'll give it to them. If not, we'll move to the next person. But the winners show up to be Violeta Alejandra. Is it here? Perfect. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so you're the winner. I'll give it to you in a second. But I encourage you to be, stick around, say hi to the speakers, take pictures in this amazing sign that's super heavy to carry, and just share the stories that you saw here, right? Share it with your friends. We're gonna have all the videos on YouTube in the TEDx official website, so you can rewatch them, share it, and share words, share ideas worth spreading. Fire up, and thank you very much. Speakers, please come here, all the speakers. Thank you very much.